So hi, welcome to Good Noise Podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm Glory.
And we're here with
president of the Good Noise fan club.
Oh, that's nice. And we're going to ask him some questions today about his new EP, Chronicles of a Calloused Heart, Part 1. So congrats on that. By the way, how do you feel about the response to it so far?
It's funny. I made this whole record knowing this is going to be the lowest performing album I've ever dropped. I like the whole time I was making it, I was like, this thing's just going to bomb and that's fine. And so it kind of did bomb and that's fine. Like not many people listen to it, but that's cool with me. So, I mean, the response, like people who listen to it love it. And I kind of made this record more for the diehards who have been with me the whole time, who wanted to hear how that story was going to wrap up. And so the people I made it for loved it, and I got the response I was hoping for from them. But I also knew, like, yeah, a lot of people are not going to be super stoked that my last record is a second installment of my folk project.
Well, yeah, that's what was so confusing to me. And, obviously I read what you sent over about how, you guys might not like it, and then you broke the track down for us. And, we were both kind of like, what the fuck are you doing on part 2? But this one definitely has its what the fuck moments, but is more of, it's not even remotely close to that. I wouldn't even, you might put it in like the folk area, but I don't even, the 2 songs that you said were folk songs, I don't even know if I would put those in the
I didn't even register it as that.
In the same sphere. But it's so why would you be like, all right, this is my send off, this is it, because after this the project's over, you're rebranding, and we'll get into that. Why would it be your low, like why would you in the studio know this is gonna be my lowest performing project and still put it out anyway?
Yeah, that's a great question. I when I did I Dream the Future, that to me was, this is the pinnacle of everything I wanted to do. And that's probably the type of project people would have expected to be the send-off. And even if you watch that film, it ends with, this concludes chapter 1. Like that film kind of was the something's about to change. And if you're like looking at like from a storytelling perspective, I would say that is the climax of the Daniel Sherman project. Like that's kind of when the end happens. This project is more of like and I want people to view Chronicles of a Calloused Heart as more of like an epilogue. It's the falling action. It's the, I Dream the Future is like the chaotic, exciting final climactic moment, if you will. But the Coach records are more like a slow burn goodbye to everything. So I knew that this would underperform because not a lot of people care about epilogues. Not everyone cares to hear the falling action and the slow farewells and the more emotional side of a farewell. Most people just tune out after the big closing climactic moment. So it was important to me that I finished that project. I had released part 2 first, and if I never released part 1, I'd feel like kind of weird about that. That was part of the reason. But I did want to release a record that's kind of about death, kind of about trauma, kind of about just all these different things that are going to spill into what's next. And so I figure there's going to be a lot of people who I lose as I rebrand and restart. So I made a record for the people who are going to carry over and stick with me. And it's start transitioning them into what's next. Not in sound wise, before you freak out and think I'm going to start playing banjo all the time. Not gonna happen.
My heart dropped a little bit.
On the note of like the sound, I now that you explain it to me, I see where you're coming from. But before hearing you speak on it, I was very confused on like, you have covered a lot of sounds throughout this portion of your career, but not a lot of those are showcased on like the farewell project. And I like was a little bit confused, like that there are so many sounds that you like. I figured you've done so much, so your ending project would kind of be a culmination of everything, whereas you're just kind of leaning kind of rockier side of the folk stuff that you were doing with the last EP.
Yeah. I feel like I dreamed. I feel like because it's an epilogue, I didn't feel that pressure to fuse all my sounds and make it this big thing. I feel like I Dream the Future was truly here's everything I'm capable of.
Mm-hmm.
But for this one, I felt like I needed to make good a little bit closer on my promise to, at the very least, do folk instrumentation on a project. I feel like I always said I was going to do that, and then my first record dropped, and people were like, "Bro, this is just guitar." I played mandolin, I played banjo. I finally leaned in a little bit more. I was never going to do like a straight up like, yeah. But I wanted to start putting a little bit of it in there because I promised I would. And so a lot of this project too was because you can imagine my label was like if you heard the pitch I just gave you, I pitched to my label, hey, so I want to do one more before we rebrand, and no one's going to listen to it. And it's going to be a sound I've never done before, that a lot of people won't like. And from like a marketing standpoint, it's going to suck, but like there's going to be 5 people who think it's pretty good.
And I need a recording budget for that. I'm going to need a budget for that, marketing and recording. Yeah. Please, thanks.
Imagine the label probably wasn't stoked. But kind of what I told them was that if I like abandon loyalty at this point, why is anyone going to be loyal to me as I restart? Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to finish the story, and I think this project will make more sense. I can't tell you the amount of time, but when the restart happens and the first release comes out, I think people will kind of look at this one and go, oh, there was a reason. So That's my hope anyway. Maybe I'm wrong. But all right. The label, I finally got the label to the point where as they're hearing what I'm working on now, they're like, oh, you weren't stupid. So
well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. And we didn't even lead with it, but we did it. I enjoyed this.
Yes. I also enjoyed it.
Yes, as much as you said we wouldn't. We did.
Exactly. I set it up.
I knew banjo is like kind of a turnoff for you guys.
Yeah, but you do it. You like even on the fucking second, the second part, which is where I would say you go a little honky dory at certain parts. Let's be honest here. Even that we both enjoyed because it's not like just straight up fucking like
on a banjo and a
for 20 minutes.
And a girl.
So. You know, going into this one and it opening with a song that isn't necessarily even remotely folk. You know, the beginning and the end tracks really aren't even remotely close to that. Like going into it, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think I told you guys this when we talked about I never know what to call it when I talk. Part 1, I always say the first one, but the first one's the second, and the second one's the first one. So I really made this annoying to discuss for you guys. But Chronicles of Calloused Heart Part 2, which came out last year.
Yes.
I remember explaining a lot that like I wanted to make a record inspired by the folk genre that people who don't like folk could enjoy. And that was still very much the target with this one. So I'm glad I hit that mark a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. How you set it up in DMs, I did get scared when I was reading it. And because you were like, you probably aren't going to like it. If you don't like it, that's okay. I was like, oh no, what did you do? And I listened to it. I was like, oh shit, no, this is good. I thought you were going to fucking just dive into that shit. But no, it was good. I really did enjoy it.
Good. Appreciate it. Which tracks were your favorite, if you remember? If you don't remember, then that's totally fine.
I do need more time to digest it. I'm going to be honest. To give you a favorite track.
Yeah.
That's valid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I only spun it once.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Same.
Yeah. You only listen to it as you're recording it.
All the instruments at the same time, recorded it, and then I never listened again.
Done. You could kind of piece it together in your mind a little bit.
Yeah. I think I remember what the songs are called and stuff.
Maybe.
That's good.
Who knows? So is there any meaning behind the EP title or cover art? We always have to, cover this.
Yeah. So the title, it's funny. I kind of threw away the meaning of this record a little bit, which is really funny. I had written both parts at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? 2 years ago? And when I started rewriting it, knowing it was going to be my last thing, I literally threw away probably 75% of my lyrics and restarted. But the idea of a chronicle is that it's a story that's not told linear.
Mm-hmm.
and that the stories don't even necessarily tie together at all. They're just tied by a theme or a single event or something like that. And so initially the idea was every individual song was its own story, and on the first part each of those songs would get a prequel. That still is true, but I wanted to put a linear storyline into it, which totally makes the title now has no meaning at all because it's not a chronicle anymore. It's like a story. But so the idea is that it's all these stories that are just tied together by the trauma I went through and the things that I was writing about. The cover is something that's really gonna heavily tease what's coming from the rebrand and the restart. And the music videos that are coming out, I have one dropping every Saturday for the next 8 weeks. Those will start easy. Again, how did the label sign off on this?
It's just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, that will start leading into what's next. So I tried to make a really natural transition for the people who care. So
all right.
Heard.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your writing process for this one? Did you lock yourself in a studio for 4 days to write 4 songs? What was this one like?
Dude, this was the most this was like a very stressful writing process for me. When I wrote part 2, again, I wrote that 2 years ago. I'd like been ignoring this traumatic event I'd gone through, and I was like, I know that if I hadn't written a song at all in over a year at that point, because I knew like if I put pen to paper, like I'm gonna be addressing things I don't want to think about, I don't want to talk about, I don't.
Yeah.
So I finally like got to the point where holding it inside like was just ruining me, like I was decaying, and it kind of exploded into boom, a 2-part 8-song thing. So that was 2 years ago. Almost a full year ago now was when I took the part 1 songs into the studio and started recording instrumentation and writing the melodies. And usually like when I like for part 2, that was a 1-day 8-hour session and that album was done. This one was like, this project kicked my ass, dude. It again, it's so weird that it's a project I knew no one would care about, and I fought so hard for it for so long. Like it makes no sense. But I think there was 5 studio sessions that went into these 4 songs, and I just couldn't crack the tracks. And the song Me, the final track, was almost just piano and vocals for a really long time. Like right now it turns into this really big cinematic orchestral thing, and for the longest time it was just piano and vocals, and it took a really long time to produce that one out. And then mixing was a lot, and the process was just, it was all over the place. It was messy and it wasn't fun anymore. Like this record was probably the least fun I've had making something. So I really did have to fight to release it. But yeah, it wasn't fun. That's the short version. It wasn't cool.
So you didn't have fun making it. Yeah. And then going into it, even before you started anything, you knew that this was going to be your lowest performing record.
Yeah.
You had to pitch that to your label. There are so many obstacles with this one record. Yeah. What kept you going with this?
I think it really was a commitment to the few people who care. It was, I've canceled so many projects in the last 8 years of doing music. I had the band Crown and Chains broke up less than a year before we were going to drop our sophomore record. I announced a record with Giovanni. I even dropped the first single from a record with Giovanni that I never released. I had planned another digital live show that was really far in pre-production. I'd announced it, and then that got canceled. And I was almost done with a cover album, genre switching cover record, and then that got canceled like less than a month before it was supposed to release. And I think I was just sick of this pattern I'd gotten into of when something got hard, I didn't do it, or when something didn't make sense, I didn't do it. So I kind of wanted to prove to myself, but also to those people, that like I will fight from this point forward. Like if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Like I'm going to stay to my word. So yeah, it really did suck. It was not a good time. I am really proud of these songs, by the way. I keep talking about them. Like like I hated making them and they didn't make sense. I do.
Mhm.
They have a really special place in my heart. I think the song "Me" is my favorite song I've ever written.
Mhm.
The song "August" is a really emotional one for me to think about. That song is kind of like if I had said no to my current girlfriend, because when I met her, I was so afraid of falling in love that I was like not interested. And if I'd actually stuck through and pushed that away, like where we would have ended up. And
Mhm.
like they're very emotional songs for me. So all that being said, like I do care about them.
Yeah, of course.
And you gave us, as I said earlier, like a brief synopsis of the songs before we were able to dive into them, and I could tell just off the bat, like by the sentence you gave us about each song, that this was a very personal project for you. I mean, with the first song, is it cool if I say what I remember?
Yeah.
Okay, the first song being about like the Crowns and Chains album, correct?
Mhm.
And then I think you didn't tell us much about the middle two, that they were just like the folkier songs, and then Me obviously being like about you, the big crescendo to everything. I could tell that this was going to be a very personal project, so it makes sense for you to just stick through with it. But it is like a shock to us to hear that, considering the last interview was like, well, it was so easy for me. I wrote 7 songs in 4 days and I just locked myself in the studio, and like it was stressful, but it was a good time. Whereas this time it was like it's stressful, but like you hated every second of it. Like it's just the dichotomy of the two over like the core, like 2 interviews in a year, like to hear it, it's like, what the fuck happened, you know?
Yeah. And I think that attitude too is a big reason of why I needed to kill. Me and my label keep using the phrase "killing Daniel Sherman." Like that's we're killing Daniel Sherman, and I think that the fact this record took as much out of me as it did was like it was kind of a confirmation to me that like this needs to die. I need to stop like promising records and making records that aren't natural and just aren't also what I'm passionate about right now. And you know, when I do the new thing, a lot of what's going to happen is it's a new process. It's a little bit of a new sound. It's a totally new drive, new focus. And also like, I've had this tendency for as long as you guys have known me, and this is probably going to be a shocker for you guys, to release like a bazillion and 5 things all year round all the time.
No
way.
This is news to me.
I'm going to be normal, and it's going to take me a year to write and record and release a record, and it's going to take me 6 months to release a 4-song EP. And I'm trying to make this something sustainable, but also like the time to rapid fire release and be experimental is so over for me. Like it was fun while it lasted. It was great to like, I'm really proud of everything I've put out, even the stuff that I think sucks now. I'm really proud of it. I'm glad I did it. But like the Daniel Sherman name was kind of always about, this is me experimenting. This is me dancing around with genre and toying with it and mangling it into something else. And I felt like a mad scientist a little bit sometimes with the stuff I was doing. And now it's time to like, if I want this to be successful, if I want to make music that actually increases in quality from where I'm at now, like it needs to have more time and it needs to be more focused. And so,
and it's awesome to hear like that you're going to be taking your time from this point forward, because the way you were doing it and the way you described your process just isn't sustainable. You'll wind up going off the deep end, like you know, and it's refreshing to hear that, you know.
Happy for you.
Yeah.
So
thanks, guys.
Stoked for less releases in the sense of higher quality, and you're not killing yourself
Driving
in the process.
insane.
Yeah.
Oh, that too.
Yeah, it's definitely there will be a lot less scrambling and a lot less anxiety. Like release day has been the most anxious day of my life for the last 8 years. Anytime I've dropped something, it's like, it happened so fast. Did I remember to master my tracks? Like, did I even color grade this video? Like, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Like when Coach dropped when this EP dropped was the first time I dropped it, and I was like not checking my phone even. I was like, I don't really care because I know it's taking it. Like I actually took my time and it's done. So I am really excited. Like my very first restart release is a while out, and it's already like almost done. So it's really cool to like, I've never held on to songs like this. It's an interesting feeling.
Hell
You
yeah.
got a little secret now.
Yeah.
A little shh.
I do.
Yeah,
I'm
it's-
really bad at secrets though, so we'll see.
Oh, damn, you're
It's-
gonna fucking leak it tomorrow.
It's
Yeah.
weird to do an interview with you where it's like there's not 7,000 things coming at the same time when you don't want to just tell us everything at you know.
Man, I think my label has a sniper on me right now. Make sure I don't.
That's why you're sitting by a window.
Yeah. If you guys see a red dot, it means I've said too
Well,
much.
I mean, there's skeletons around him. I think they've got
That's
him
true.
locked up somewhere.
Sure. These are my brethren now since Daniel Sherman's dead.
Yeah.
This is who Daniel Sherman hangs with. So,
That's chill as hell.
yes.
Chill as hell. I love it.
Kind of a vibe. Like, they are good friends, you know?
Yeah.
Look, you can't see this on camera, but this one has like a little,
Oh my god, it's a little dog.
yeah.
The fuck?
You've got
Is
a
that
pet
like
and everything.
Frenchie? I think it's a Frenchie.
I don't know. It's, you can say hi though. Here he is.
Hello.
We love meeting the furry friends.
It's not very furry anymore.
No, it's a little bony actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want you to tell us your favorite lyric off this EP and what it means to you.
Ugh. Why do I let this question every time?
You've done this thing like 5 times.
You, Lori.
You've been
It's
on the
always
podcast more than
you.
anybody else, and every single time you get blown away by this question and the 3-word question. And you're like
Yep.
blown away that we're asking them as if the question
Yep.
list has changed since the first time we interviewed you.
No.
Exactly.
it
The
really-
3-word question is coming up, so you can start prepping for that now.
I swear, I study our previous interviews every time I get ready to do this, and I still let the questions bother me like this. Favorite lyric.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say, all that's left is hardly me,
Oh, oh.
and that's like the most depressing sentence I just said in an interview that was so lighthearted. So sorry about it, but that lyric is like, it kind of really describes where I'm at musically and personally.
Mm.
I feel like I went through this event and I wrote this record about it, and this event really did literally change who I am. It changed my personality. It changed the things I believed, the things I don't believe. It changed. I'm a different person after it. I don't think I realized the way that a trauma like that changes someone. It actually made me reflect on previous traumas and how I changed after those too. But
Mhm.
I really was like, a part of me died because of what I went through.
Yeah.
And that lyric really has a lot of ties into part 2 as well. And so I like the way that I played with it, like just from a technical standpoint too. But I also think like at the same time that part of me died because of that event, that's also when music changed for me too. And so you've asked a lot, like, why was this your last record? I think this record also kind of signified when I started writing it, the beginning of the end for me. And so it was really fitting to release this one last when it's kind of the impetus for everything that happened. And so the things that are coming next from me, you'll get a sense lyrically, sonically, all of that I'm restarting, not just because it makes sense from a marketing standpoint or because the label told me to. The label's been pushing me to restart for a long time now, and I've told them no. I just finally said yes.
Yeah.
I'm restarting because I've changed, and because I've changed, naturally what I do has to change too.
Gotcha.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So how do you recommend your fans to listen to this EP for the first time? Should you do in the car with friends, in dark with headphones on? Is workout EP, party EP? What do you personally recommend?
Yeah, I think we're all going to agree that it's not a workout or a party EP.
No. No.
Maybe not.
Pumping it up
Maybe
to
not.
me in the gym.
Oh man, I think this is like a alone in the dark glass of whiskey in your hand in your feels EP. And there's actually 2 ways I recommend listening to it in terms of the order you listen to. I think there's one, the obvious answer, which is you listen through part 1 and then you listen to part 2. But I also think it's really, really cool to listen to the first track of part 1 and then the first track of part 2 and go like that, because that was the original intention of it, to be a chronicle. And you'll start seeing how much symmetry there is and how much of the lyrics like really heavily play on each other. Like you'll be able to tell what parts I wrote at the same time and what parts changed a little bit. I think it's cool. So
absolutely, that's really fucking cool. So this one should be super, super quick. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this EP for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
I didn't know you asked both of them every time.
Yeah.
Well, I actually skipped one of my questions because you've answered it 36 times throughout this interview, so she got blessed with both.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
3
words.
Time.
Okay. Trauma, death,
Mm-hmm.
and banjo.
And those 3 definitely work together.
Drop a record called Trauma, Death, and Banjo. That would go hard.
Dude, that'd go fucking hard. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So in that same train of thought, is there a certain feeling or emotion you want listeners to have while going through the EP?
Something I've said a lot is that I released part 2 and people were like, wow, this record is so sad. Like this is such a devastating album. And I was like, guys, this is supposed to be the happier one.
Yeah.
And so something I hoped when I wrote part 1, and it's a really weird thing to say, but like part 2 is a sad out. Like they're not wrong. It is a devastating record, but I wanted part 1 to make part 2 feel hopeful. Like I wanted people to realize that part 2, it sounds sad and what I'm saying is sad, but it's actually, if you know where I started, it's so hopeful that I got to that point and was willing to want to heal, versus the part 1 record's very everything sucks and life's miserable and I kind of want to die right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's, so I do want people to feel like a sense of hope when they listen to them both in context. Because I think a lot of us too, like you can go through something and the next 5 years feel like, man, I'm just not getting anywhere. But if you were to take a slice of where you are now and a slice of where you were then and put them next to each other, like I think when you actually give context to yourself too, you can be like, oh, I'm actually not doing awful. Like I'm moving forward. So I part of the reason I forced myself to write both parts of this record was that I think there's a lot of people are really hard on themselves when they change after going through a trauma, and they're not willing to like recognize in themselves that they're healing and moving forward, because that process, it's a different process for everyone. It's never linear. And I wanted a record that kind of was just really blunt and blatant about like, here's how ugly and messy it can look like, but also there's so much hope in it. So
absolutely.
Oh yeah. Love that.
What is your favorite memory that you made while creating this record? I know you said the entire process was very difficult, but if there's any ray of sunshine that you'd like to share, we would love to hear it.
Let's focus on the positive, man.
Yeah. Chin scratcher.
Favorite memory from making this record. Okay, there is a funny one. So on the song Me, there's a lot of like really bizarre background instrumental going on that like it kind of just pokes in and pokes out occasionally. Like you don't really notice it all the time, but I made the CEO of my label really uncomfortable. He's a fantastic guitar player. He's able to play banjo as well. And so I told him, here's the key of the song. I'm gonna give you nothing. I'm not gonna give you click. I'm not gonna give you the instrumental or the words. I want you to just play guitar, play banjo in this key. He's someone who has so much control when he's in that studio. Like you could tell him like, oh, play me piano, play this emotion, this emotion, this emotion. He goes, oh, like this. Like he's just like,
yeah.
And seeing like, when I told him like, I want you to not think, just play with your emotions, what comes to mind within this key. He was so flustered. And he would like play a couple lines and be like, was that okay? Is that fun? And I was crying, laughing at him on the other side of the booth, because it was so funny seeing him not have control over something and not, I didn't tell him what I was going to do with what he played either. So he was really confused. Like, you can't use any of this. I was like, watch me. And so if you go and listen to Me again, you'll hear there's forward banjo and reversed banjo, and there's forward guitar and reversed guitar that kind of pokes in and out throughout the song. And that was me telling him like, hey, here's the key, play something that you feel. Like, I don't care what it is, but just feel it. And you can also listen to those parts and know that I was crying, laughing, making fun of him every time he played a note. He looked so uncomfortable. It was hilarious.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
Fuck
good.
yeah. Fuck yeah.
For the last question, we have to ask, and I know you've got a sniper to your head. You can't say much, but what is coming next? Daniel Sherman is now kind of officially dead, signing off with the videos. What is next? What can you tell us?
Choose your words carefully. I had a thing prepared for this, and then I left it at home. I'm not at my house right now, so this is really awkward. It's gonna look what I can promise people, because if you're watching this, it means you care about the Daniel Sherman project and what it's been. I can promise you it's gonna look familiar. Like, it's not something so different and unique that you're not gonna like it. Like, I can promise if you like what I've done, you'll like what's next. But it's gonna be a little more intense, a little more cinematic. It's gonna be, I'm still gonna be genre switching, genre fusing. Like, I'm not capable of not being that, so don't worry about that either. It's not like I'm just gonna do rock now and that's it. Like, I'm gonna do everything. And the only other thing I can tell you is that I have told the same story for 8 years now. And if you think that I'm going to give up on that story, then you're stupid. It all still matters.
Yeah.
Everything still matters. And what's next is I'm going to continue telling that same story, but from a perspective that's always been there, and that will sound very familiar, but that you've never heard before. So that's all I can say.
All right.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that. We won't poke.
Yeah.
So as I said, that's all the questions you have to say. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
No. I mean, what am I going to say? Go stream my dead project? Like, no, don't. I mean, you can. If you want to go listen to stuff that is gone and dead, then you can. But for now, just wait and miss me for a while until I come back.
Keep an eye out on socials.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for Sal. It's been Daniel Sherman, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.